with the light of who you are. So let there be light.
So Christmas. Christmas. Christmas? Or just another holiday? Today, we're going to look at Christmas. We're going to look at what Christmas means in our society. We're going to look at whether it's a birthday celebration, and a very important birthday celebration, or is it just another holiday? What does Christmas mean to us now? How important is it in the scheme of things? Where does it even come from? Why do we do it? Why do we do Christmas the way that we do it? Why do we spend so much money? Why do we place so much importance on this time of the year? Well, I guess to start with, we better look at where it all began. Even better, why don't we start with who Christmas is all about? As usual, the best place to look is the Bible. So we could start with the Gospels, but why don't we go back even further than that? And you might say, well, hang on a second, doesn't it all begin in the Gospels? Well, actually, no, it doesn't. It actually starts about 700 years before the Gospels in the book of Isaiah, chapter 9, verse 6. Yes, you know where I'm coming from now. Well, let's have a look at it. Verse 6 of chapter 9 of Isaiah. For unto us a child is born. We know these words. Unto us a child is born. Unto us a child is given, and the government will be upon his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Or simply known as Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. Christ. Remember that? Verse 7 continues, of the greatness of his government and peace there will be no end. He will reign on David's throne and over his kingdom, establishing and upholding it with justice and righteousness from that time on and forever. The zeal of the Lord God Almighty will accomplish this. So this is a fairly important little guy. The fact that he's spoken about around 700 years before he's actually born means to me that he's pretty important. Okay, so let's jump ahead 700 years to the Gospels. Firstly, Matthew. Matthew talks about his birth in chapter 1, verses 18 through 25. But the first 18 verses, he talks about the chronology of Jesus. First of all, the first 14, I'm just trying to find my place, the 14 generations between Abraham and David, and then another 28 generations between David and Jesus. Jump ahead to Mark. Mark doesn't talk about the birth of Jesus at all. He just gets straight into the meaty stuff of John the Baptist's ministry before then moving into Jesus' ministry. Luke starts off talking about the birth of John the Baptist before, again, leading into the birth of Jesus in chapter 1, verses 26 through 38. Now, we won't read these. We've probably read them half a dozen times already this Christmas time, and we know the story really well. Jump ahead one more gospel to John. Again, John doesn't talk about the birth of Jesus. Instead, he starts with John the Baptist's ministry and then leads into Jesus' ministry, very much like Mark. Okay, so we've established the birth of Jesus and that he's a pretty important bloke. And we all know that Christmas is a time when Christians celebrate his birthday, 25th of December. Some parties argue that the 25th of December is unlikely to be his birthday because it's pretty much in the middle of the Judean winter, and the shepherds are probably not going to be sitting on top of the hill watching their flocks by night, because it'll be too jolly cold. It'll be freezing. But whatever the date really was, Jesus got stuck with the 25th of December. So where did the 25th of December come from? Some say it was first asserted officially by Pope Julius in 350 AD. Others say it was originally the date that a pagan festival was celebrated and was later replaced with Christmas after the locals' conversion to Christianity. And the cynical side of me says that it's pretty convenient. If you like festivals, we'll just change from one festival to another festival. For me personally, I don't really know, and it doesn't really matter to me. The fact is that 2,000 years plus after the birth of Jesus, we still celebrate Christmas right around the world. But do we celebrate his birthday? That's the big question. Do we celebrate Christ's birthday, or do we just look forward to a big party and a few days off work? And every year it seems that Christmas decorations go up a little earlier than they did the year before. They actually come onto the shelves in the supermarkets and in Kmart and wherever else you want to shop a little earlier each year. And eventually we're going to be putting them up before we get to Easter. And what about Christmas decorations? I mean, how stupid is it really? All the nice little bits of red and green tinsel we put around all the place. I know you've got them all in your houses, and we will probably have them within the next week or two. And we've got snowmen and snowflakes. I mean, how stupid is that? This is Australia, for goodness sake. It's summer. We're going to the beach. We're not going skiing, least of all down a mountain. Might go behind a boat. Not down a mountain. And then there's Santa Claus. Where did he come from? And what's that got to do with Jesus' birthday? Well, I guess most of us would know, or maybe at least some of us would know, that the legend of Santa Claus can be traced back to around the 4th century AD to a monk named, what's he named? Saint Nicholas. Well, actually, he was named Nicholas. The saint bit just came a little bit later on. And the story goes that he was very pious and he was a very generous man, and he went around handing around gifts to everyone. That's a good way to get popular, I can tell you. So how did we get Santa Claus out of St. Nicholas? Well, apparently it evolved from St. Nicholas's Dutch nickname, and that is no pun. And his Dutch nickname was Sinterklaas. Sinterklaas? You know, we have evolution. It evolved into Santa Claus. But really, do you know that Santa Claus, the name Santa Claus, was never actually adopted until around the 1760s? So, that's almost all of your history lesson done. There's just one last thing we need to check out. Where does the word Christmas come from? Anybody got any ideas? Anybody know where the word Christmas comes from? Bingo. Christ's Mass. And that's according to the Catholic Encyclopedia. Now, it comes from the phrase, and I'm not going to try and pronounce it, I'm going to spell it for you, because if I try and pronounce it, I'm going to look like a right goose. The first word, 2 words, Christes. Now, that could be Christes, it could be Christ's, could be a couple of other things as well. The second word I really shouldn't try to pronounce because it's spelled Maesse. Now, is that mass? Is that masse? Is that mass? I don't know. But out of that, and I tell you, that was first recorded in 1038 AD. But out of that comes Christ's, or Mass of Christ, Christ's Mass. Mass being a celebration. And so the term Christmas came into being. And now the history lesson is over. So let's go to the modern day. Christmas time is a lot of things for a lot of different people. To some people, it's a great time of celebration. To some people, it can be very painful or a very lonely time. And to other people, it doesn't really mean very much at all. It's a time that can be exploited by some, particularly in the retail world, and we see that all the time. It's a time that can be very spiritual to others. It's a big party time for some. And for others, it's very sacred. It's a time when there's carols in the park that are put on by various community groups. Now, these carols are an amazing thing. They can be attended by 10 people, they can be attended by hundreds of people, or sometimes thousands of people. We've seen the crowds when they've had carols in the park down in Harry's Hawkins. When I lived in Sydney back in the 1980s, the local Rotary Club used to put on carols in the park in Padstow, where we were, and my father-in-law, Rob's dad, he hosted it. He wasn't a part of Rotary, but for 20 years he hosted these carols. And Robert and I actually performed there on several occasions. We used to get upwards of 3,000 people at those carols. So yes, I know what it's like to sing a carol, to sing solos in front of 3,000 people, and I know what it's like to sing solos in front of 3 people, and I can tell you singing in front of 3 people is far more daunting than singing in front of 3,000. And a little aside to that story of the carols in the park at Padstow, my mother-in-law Shirley, who's been with Jesus for some time now, a few days after those carols, she was in the hairdressers getting her hair done. And there were a couple of other ladies in there as well who had been to the carols a few days earlier and were talking about it. And one of them said to the other that she just couldn't stand that guy who hosts the carols because he's so full of himself. Now, my poor mother-in-law, I reckon she would nearly have cried, because nothing could be further from the truth about my father-in-law, who quite a few of you have actually met here. He is one of the most humble men on earth, but he's also incredibly gifted. He's gifted in leading big groups of musical people, of choirs, of bands, the whole bit. And, you know, the funny thing about all of that is that people can perceive things about people that they don't know anything about. And they just pick. My poor mother-in-law, well, she said nothing. But when I heard the story, I was actually incensed. Because on one side, you have a group of people who year after year after year give of their time, give of their talents, give of their gifts. They donate the stuff that they have to put on something that's really worthwhile for the community. And then on the other side, you have people who just want to pick and gossip. Anyway, back to Christmas. Every year, you have the masses of people who want to get together and sing song after song about the Christmas story, song after song about the birth of Jesus, and they want to dress up as shepherds and kings and whatever else. They want to be donkeys and they want to be sheep and whatever else they can think of, and they want to sing carols and songs about the birth of Jesus in the park, and when it's all over, they want to go home and watch Carols in the Domain on the TV. Why? Why do they do this? They're celebrating something. And if you ask them what they're celebrating, you're going to get a whole host of different answers. Some will be celebrating the birth of Jesus, no doubt. Others are going to be celebrating holidays. That's a good thing to celebrate. Some is going to be celebrating Christmas without really knowing what it's all about. Others are just going to be celebrating for the sake of celebrating. Everyone loves a celebration. They interviewed some teenagers and young adults on one of the current affairs programs a couple of years ago about what Christmas was all about and what it meant for them. And you know what? Not one single one of those young people mentioned Jesus or his birthday. And when they were questioned further, some said they weren't interested in Jesus. Some said they didn't believe in Jesus. And you know what? To my surprise, some even said that they had never heard of Jesus. Now that is a very sad sign of our times. But yet, each year, our society continues to sing its carols and continues to go to parties, and they continue to dress up and they continue to celebrate till they can't stand up anymore. And they go on holidays and they spend heaps of money and not think for one moment why they actually do it. It's just Christmas. It's Christmas, that's why. And that's all. But you know what? Then there'll be those who aren't celebrating. There's going to be those who are at home on their own, lonely, sad, hurting, with nothing to celebrate at all. Nothing to be happy about at all. But it's Christmas, we say. It's a happy time. Not for everyone. And not for just one reason either. Often for a whole lot of reasons. And the task of trying to get into that Christmas spirit is just totally beyond them. They just can't do it. Can't get their mind around it. And sure, look, there's plenty of churches around that put on lunches and dinners for those who are lonely and for those who are homeless at that time of the year. And there's even individuals who bring people into their homes and do the same sort of thing. And that's a really good thing that they do that. But in the end, what does Christmas really mean to these people? Probably not very much at all. You know, it's ironic. It's ironic that for a world that has largely turned its back on God, the biggest celebration of the year is for his Son. But unfortunately, his Son is ignored. What a birthday. What a birthday. Can you imagine putting on a birthday party for yourself at your home, people coming over, and they totally ignore you? They don't talk to you, they don't give you a present, they don't want to eat your cake, they don't want to do anything. I just couldn't imagine, but that's what it's like. Maybe that's what it's like for Jesus. But you know what? He's got broad shoulders. And he also has insight. He knows what's going on. He always knew it was going to be like this. Always knew that the world was going to slowly drift away and try and fulfil its own needs and try and invent its own happiness. In a world where 30 or 40 years ago even, everyone knew who Jesus was, whether they believed in him or not, to a world now where we pride ourselves on our sophistication and on our knowledge of all things and our amazing technology. Many of our young people have never even heard of Jesus, or they don't even know who he is, and the only time they have ever heard his name is in a curse. Jesus Christ. I flinch when I hear that, and I hear it all the time. Working in a church-run nursing home, I hear it all the time. And so, in this day and age, what does Christmas mean? Yes, it's Jesus' birthday, but most people out there don't seem to care about that anymore. And I wonder how, I sort of ask this question myself, I wonder if Jesus really cares about it. Is he really interested in having a birthday? He's had a couple of thousand of them. But does he celebrate his own birthday? Probably a silly thought, really, but I don't think, does he? I'm not asking you to answer. For me personally, Christmas is not so much about his birthday. It's about him. It's about Jesus Christ. Remember earlier when I read from Isaiah about what he would be called? Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. But more simply, Jesus Christ. And remember I said, remember the Christ. Well, Christ is the Christ of Christmas. And so often you see Christ replaced in the word Christmas with an X. Xmas. Again, it sounds like we're judging others, but I think it's just atrocious. Why do we do it? Is it for convenience? Is it just easier to write Xmas as opposed to Christmas? Or could there be something more to it than just convenience? You take Christ out of Christmas, and what have you got? A mass. Just a celebration. That's it. You're just left with a celebration. But a celebration of what? It's a celebration of nothing. It's a celebration of aimlessness. It's a celebration of nowhere to go, and that's what you get when you take Christ out of Christmas. But this is one of Satan's great deceptions. He makes us think that we're happy and that we're fulfilled when we're not. And that's the lie of the great deceiver. For me, Christmas is not so much a celebration of his birthday. That's a worldly concept. Christmas is a celebration of Christ, our dear, beautiful Jesus Christ. And it's a celebration that can take place all year round, not just at Christmas time. We can celebrate Christ all year round. But now we're at Christmas time, this time of year in particular. Let us, as the family of God, not just celebrate Christ's birthday, but celebrate Christ and what he did for us on the cross, and not what the world has turned Xmas into. You know, there's no happy ending to this message for so many. The world has made its decision, and it'll live by it, and it'll die by it. And each year it'll continue, it's going to continue on and celebrate a mass without Christ and the emptiness that that celebration brings. I don't know how to turn that round. I don't know if we'll ever be able to turn it around. I don't know how we can be a light on the hill for our community, but somehow we must try. We cannot accept defeat. But we also cannot do it on our own. We must bring Christ back into Christmas and celebrate him all year round. And for you, my family, Merry Christmas.
Lord, I want to be a world changer, be a city on a hill that shines in the dark with the light of who you are. So let there be light.